This, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, is the Lunduk Journal podcast for April 3rd in the year of our Lord 2022. I'm going to address the elephant in the room right now. There haven't been a lot of podcasts lately. There have not been a lot of podcasts lately. Let me repeat, not a lot of podcasts. Not lately. I've been sick. I've gotten sick so many times in the last friggin' year. It is absolutely ridiculous. I got the COVID twice. I got the norovirus once. Just once on that one. So, knock on wood there. I got 87,000 different colds and flus. It has been absolutely insane. And my whole family, we just keep getting sick. Nothing, we're not, we're not in the hospital. We're not dying, but we've just been constantly sick, one thing after another, and it has been redonkulous. And because of that, I haven't been able to do anything. Either I've been coughing or sneezing or wheezing or unable to breathe, or my stamina just hasn't been where it is. And when I say, to be clear, my stamina isn't where it is, I mean that when I sit down to record a podcast, I, after 10 minutes, just break out into a flop sweat like I just ran a 3,000-mile marathon around all of Staten Island. And to be clear, I have no idea how big Staten Island is because I've never been there. It could be 1 billion miles for all I know. I just have no idea. But I'm starting to feel better. I'm finally starting to feel normal. And I almost hesitate to say that because I've said that before. I swear 4 months ago, I was in a similar boat. I was like, okay, I'm starting to feel normal again. And then wham, COVID round 2. Oh, my heavens to Betsy. But I am starting to feel a little normal again. So here's hoping, knock on the wood, throw the salt over the shoulder, and whatever other superstitious things might help that keeps up. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to get back into a rather regular routine once again with the Lunduke Journal podcast because I enjoy doing it so. And we're gonna try and do this regularly throughout the week here, and we'll just see how it goes. And I'm gonna talk about today specifically 2 very Linuxy topics. The first, we're going to talk about how elementary OS is apparently dying from the inside out. Its organs are just rotting away and the whole thing is just dying. It's very, very sad to watch, and I don't really like it all. I had a little laugh right there, but it was like a sad laugh, when you see a comedy about someone going to a funeral and they cope with sadness by laughing, that's what that was. And then also that we have Arch on M1 powered Macs. Yeah, the Apple Silicon Macs have Linux now, specifically Arch, which is cool because now Mac users that have an M1 powered Macintosh can say, by the way, I run Arch, and that's a pretty big deal for all of them. But before we dive into the elementary stuff, I want to remind folks that really you should be subscribing to the Lunduke Journal over on Substack or over on Locals, or if you're really, really baller, over on both. I can't believe I just said baller. It's fantastic. I've made it really, really cheap because the price was a little bit higher, and shoot, inflation, man. Gas costs $8,000 a gallon, and food is like 1 drumstick of chicken. You have to give them your kidney in exchange for it, and it's like, you know what? People need a break. So I dropped the prices because it's such a fun community to hang out in. So if you go to lunduke.locals.com, that's the Lunduke Journal community. And it is just the best, just nicest, happiest, politics-free, troll-free, swearing-free, family-friendly community just on earth. It is just so pleasant there. It is like my happy place, and more people should be able to do it. But part of it is that's how we pay for all of the Lunduke Journal stuff. And so we have to charge something to be able to post content there. You can sign up for free and read most of the content for free, but if you want to post content, you have to pay just a couple of dollars. I made it $3 because $3 seems to me pretty good because it's about 1/1000th the price of gas. And then over at the Lunduk Journal on Substack, Lunduke.substack.com. That's where all the articles go up. And believe me, you want to go over. There's articles coming out every single day, really nerdy stuff, and it's really, really fun. And I made the price. If you get a yearly subscription, it is $1.25 a month. My thought with that being, it's less than the cost of gas, not exaggerating, like forever ago. It's less than the cost of gas was in 1990. Like the average cost of gas in 1990 was $1.30, and that was like a little bit of a spike. And so it's $1.25, which is less than that. So I'm like, you know what? At that point, it's super affordable for anybody, and I wanted to make it available for anybody. And there's a ton of perks. I just released Linux Tycoon 3, the video game for Linux and DOS, the OS Wars. And that's free for everyone who's a subscriber to either Locals or Substack or both. I released a new book called the Lunduk Journal Quarterly Volume 2, which is just like a huge collection of really nerdy satire. It is just pure funny satire stuff. Like half of it's about Linux. The other half of it is just all over the place, like general computing and general nerdery. It's so much fun. There's like 9 books, I want to say, that you get for free. There's like 4 video games. There's a whole collection of podcasts that are exclusive over there, exclusive articles, all that stuff. Again, lunduke.locals.com, lunduke.substack.com. All right. So go do that right now. Go do that this very, very moment. Just do that right now. Sign up for that and download all the stuff. Go get all the goodies and have some fun. All right. Let's talk about Elementary. So if you haven't been following along, about a month ago, there was this little weird thing that happened over on the tweeters. When Daniel Foray and Cassidy Blade, the 2 co-founders of Elementary, kind of posted some content on Twitter, some tweets about what was going on behind the scenes. And this mostly came from Daniel Foray, who is one of the co-founders. And Daniel made it clear that things weren't going great. There was financial trouble, and there was very significant disagreement of what to do about that between him and his partner, Cassidy. And the 2 of them kind of had been at it. And now Elementary is kind of was for a long time a bit of a Cinderella story, right? It kind of did a great job. I talked about it in multiple Linux Sucks shows. I talked about it on many different podcasts. I interviewed both of these guys for articles on Network World, the Lunduk Journal, Linux Journal Magazine, Linux Action Show when I did that. I mean, I gave these guys just tons of press. In fact, some of their earliest press I gave them for, with millions of viewers. And what happened was they did a great job of building and designing an Ubuntu-based, they used Ubuntu, and then they built on top of it Linux distro that just was very attractive. It was very Mac-like, but they also did some other things too that were not quite as Mac-like, that were just really, really beautiful. And the 2 of them and all the rest of the team that contributed to Elementary just did an amazing job with the system. And over the years, they built a following, and they built a really loyal fan and user base. And I never really got down to the point where I was using Elementary constantly. But I tested out every release because I was really impressed with what they were doing. And I still remain impressed with what they did. It's just fantastic stuff. And so they formed a company around it, and they were able to work full time on Elementary as their day jobs. And that's impressive, I mean, it's to go from a passion project to a community project to a company that is earning enough profit to pay for any employees, let alone more than one employee. And that's pretty fantastic. And so it was a bit of a Cinderella story. It was amazing. It was something to look up to. And to find out that at least in the last, year or so, things had been going pretty badly in terms of finances, and they felt like they had to do some cutbacks, and then there was some bad blood between the two co-founders, and apparently lawyers got involved, and Daniel one of the co-founders made an offer to the other co-founder to buy him out, and like that didn't go over well, and then it just went poorly. And so I wrote an article about it, that it kind of seemed like Elementary OS was imploding. I mean, it's not like it's a huge team, right? We're not talking about like some 1,000-person company here, right? This is just a small ragtag group of friends building an operating system, and to see this sort of thing happening, to see friends doing business together and it going south is really sad to watch. It happens. I mean, of course it happens. I mean, anyone who's ever done business with friends knows exactly what I'm talking about. It can go south in a hurry, but it is very sad to see every time it happens. And so I wrote about it, and then that was about a month ago. And then things kind of about 2 days ago, I believe it was, things came to a point where it clearly had resolved, and not in a great way. So one of the co-founders, Cassidy, and I should preface this by saying I've spoken to both of these guys so many times. I've met them in person many times. I've had meals with both of them before. I mean, we know each other, and we don't really talk or get along. I honestly, we don't get along at this point. I have nothing against either of them, but they don't like me because I don't think they like that I just say what's on my mind, and that bothers them. But I digress. But I still am very impressed with all the work they've done, and I feel like they should be proud of their work. And I just kind of wanted to say that outright because I know these guys. They're good guys. They tried really hard to make this whole thing work, and so it's so sad to see this fall apart. Anyway, so Cassidy, one of the co-founders, made a post. And I linked to it over on the Lunduk Journal. I'll put a link somewhere, but if you can't find it, just go over to lunduk.substack.com. And the titled episode is called, or the article, it's not an episode, this is an episode, that's an article. The article is called Elementary OS Reduces Staff to 1, Warns, quote, Less Features for Next Release. That's the title. Okay, so Cassidy, he made a blog post. In it, he said, I offered an even split of the company's assets. One of us keeps the company, the other gets half the money. No, sorry. That was a quote from Daniel on Twitter from a month ago. So anyway, so that happened. Flash forward to now. This is what Cassidy said. This is the thing Cassidy said. Quote, I will no longer be involved in any way at Elementary. Instead, I will focus my free time efforts on contributing to GNOME, Flatpak, FlatHub, and those growing ecosystems. So whatever happened behind the scenes, and it seems it's kind of behind closed doors how things got resolved. If they, clearly. Daniel bought out Cassidy's portion. How that happened, what amount of money transpired, who knows? It doesn't really matter. But one of the co-founders is out. Okay. Now, so at this point, there's two co-founders, and only one of them is still part of the company. So that would be Daniel. Now, Daniel took to YouTube and did a YouTube live stream for an hour where he discussed everything that happened. And I watched it, and I pulled out some quotes from that video because honestly, it's a hard to watch video. It's hard because Daniel looks incredibly uncomfortable. He looks uncomfortable in front of the camera. He looks uncomfortable in front of the microphone. He looks uncomfortable talking about the topic he's talking about. He clearly, you can see it in his body language and his tone of voice and the words he chose. He does not want to be there talking about Elementary. And that is interesting. So he makes a few quotes, and I'm gonna read you some of these quotes now because I think just listening to the quotes that he said, the words that came out of Daniel's mouth, really gives you a good idea of where the company is headed and where Elementary as a Linux distribution is headed. Okay, quote, the company is just me now. So there's only one person in it. And I am the sole owner of Elementary Incorporated. Now, from the video, it became clear that prior to all the shakeups happening, there was 3 employees. Daniel, Cassidy, the 2 co-founders, and 1 other person. There's now just 1 employee, and that is Daniel. He then turned the topic to the upcoming release of Elementary, right? Now, and when I say upcoming, I mean very soon upcoming. So each version of Elementary is typically based on an Ubuntu long-term support release. The next Ubuntu long-term support release is this month, right? Ubuntu version 22.04 comes out in April of 2022, and it comes out this month. And then typically, at least that's how it was presented, is that the next version of Elementary, based on that, Elementary OS 7, would be based on that LTS release. So becoming soon. Quote, for OS 7, there is some feature stuff that's going to have to be scoped back. OS 7 is probably going to be a more modest release. Quote, a few less features for OS 7. Okay. So he repeated it several times throughout this live stream that he would be really scaling back OS 7, scaling back in scope, much more modest, much less features. And the fact that they're talking about it in that regard so close to a release suggests incredibly strongly that there's a ton of feature work that just wasn't done anyway, and that feature work just hasn't been happening or hasn't been progressing like you would need it to in order to have this release coming up soon. So that suggests very strongly that things behind the scenes have been going poorly for quite some time. All right, so then he continued on, and he said this: I don't want Elementary to become this out-of-control machine, this crazy capitalist profit-seeking machine. Yeah. He really doesn't want it to be profit-seeking. And if this can't be a job, that's also fine. Red flags everywhere. A giant raising explosion of red flags in the sky. So, okay, number 1, not going after, he doesn't want it to be a capitalist thing, right? He doesn't want Elementary to be a profit thing, right? And immediately I start thinking of the movie The Jerk with Steve Martin, where he's working in a carnival, and he's like, oh, it's a profit game. Anyway, and so he's not into that. Well, okay, it's hard to have a company with resources and employees and such if there's no profit. So that kind of raises some red flags there. But even more so is the if this can't be a job, that's also fine statement. That means that at the very least, Daniel, the only employee, the one employee that remains at Elementary, is thinking, there's a real possibility I won't be able to pay myself. And this can't be a job for me. Right. Well, that's not fantastic. That's not fantastic. And then he makes this comment. If Elementary OS is just like a cool design incubator for what gets picked up in GNOME, I think that's okay. That suggests to me, I'm going to repeat that, if Elementary OS is just like a cool design incubator for what gets picked up in GNOME, I think that's okay. So that means from Daniel's point of view, from the co-founder of Elementary's point of view, his point of view is that it's okay if it's not a good, stable operating system. It's okay if it's just kind of a design incubator, right? A place to have ideas about design that might get picked up in the next version of GNOME. I think a lot of people that use Elementary would be pretty bummed out about that. And that suggests very strongly to me that the co-founder of the company doesn't feel that the company or the project, any of it, has legs going forward. He also said, quote, "I'm not sure about doing another elementary developer weekend." Now, the elementary developer weekend is kind of like their super easy, version of like a developer conference, right? It's like an online only stream developer conference. And he's thinking, maybe we won't do any more of those. Okay, scaling back all around here. And then what really, really struck out at me is he made two comments that just kind of blew me away about the company itself. Now, again, before I read these, bear in mind that Elementary was before this happened, before it all kind of imploded, was just a 3-person little tiny mom and pop style startup between friends that built a Linux distribution. So the quote, "I don't know if Elementary had a bad impact necessarily. I don't think the focus of Elementary Incorporated was in the right place." Okay, well, that doesn't sound good. So his view of Elementary isn't a positive one. It's that he doesn't know if it quote, "I don't know if Elementary had a bad impact necessarily." Huh. I mean, that's rough. If you have a startup and the best thing you can say about it is, well, I don't know if it had a negative impact necessarily, that's not a great thing. And then he made this statement: Elementary Incorporated was an uncool place to work. Whoa. Yeah. So a 3-person company was an uncool place to work. Huh. I'm just going to posit this out there. You're just going to throw this out there. If you have a company that's just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, and it's an uncool place to work, that's a look in the mirror sort of moment. I mean, really. I mean, granted, one rotten apple can spoil the bunch, to be sure. And maybe it wasn't Daniel, maybe it was one of the other 2 people. But apparently, at least one of them made it an uncool place to work, according to Daniel. So, in short, let's kind of wrap this up here. The company of Elementary has reduced down to a staff of 1 person, with the scope of the next release, Elementary version 7, being scoped back and a more modest release. And the company will not focus on profitability or sustainability or the ability to pay a singular employee going forward. And the future of Elementary may be simply as a, quote, design incubator for GNOME. And Elementary has been an uncool place to work. Holy moly. Haichimachi, hachimachi. Holy frijoles. Murgatroyd even. Now, I want to repeat something here, something I mentioned at the beginning. The work that this team did was exceptional. All of the people involved in Elementary, the Elementary Incorporated, the project, the community, all of it, should be very proud of what they did. Even if I don't use it as my day-to-day operating system, even if you don't use it as your day-to-day operating system, the people did interesting, valuable, cool work that was worth trying, worth putzing with, worth looking at, worth talking about. And for that, they should feel extremely proud of themselves. I'm proud of them. And I don't even talk to these people. And I'm proud of them. At least I don't talk to them anymore. It's a bummer to see this sort of thing happening. It really is. It really is a bummer. It's different when it's a big company, like Red Hat. Like I like Fedora, right? Fedora is a great Linux distribution. And again, the people behind Fedora should be very proud of the work they do. But if Red Hat Incorporated, well, I guess it's really IBM now. Okay, so if IBM Incorporated kind of implodes from the inside out and has to fire everyone but one guy, and one guy is like, man, this is an uncool place to work. Maybe IBM could just be a design incubator for Oracle or something. Would that be sad? It would be, but not in the same way somehow. A big corporate entity, a big stuffy boardroomy shirt and tie entity dying is just not quite as sad of a thing to me as seeing this little shop, this little company run by friends implode on itself. That to me is just super sad, and I hate to see it. It's a massive bummer. A massive bummer. To everyone involved, and I know that the individuals over at Elementary will listen to this and probably rage about it on the internet, because they block me everywhere and rage about me every time I open my mouth. But I want to say specifically to all of you, you did good on this. You should feel proud. I'm repeating myself, but I need to. They should feel proud, and I'm proud of all of you for what you did. Well done. Maybe this company, maybe Elementary is dead or dying. It certainly looks like it has more than one foot in that there grave. And maybe the project will live on, maybe it won't. I don't know, but this doesn't bode well. Anyone who's been around the Linux world or the alternative operating system world for more than a few years has seen these sorts of things happen. Has seen the companies die and the communities clinging to hope that, the project can live on, man. It's open source, dude. We can make it. Very rarely happens. But we can hope. We can hope, and you know what? To those of you who dare to dream, man, I got your back. You go for it. You keep building Elementary. You build version 7. Hell, you build version 8, 9, and beyond. And you keep making it awesome. Even if the company behind it fails and flounders. Even if the people who originally founded the whole gosh darn thing just break apart and don't be involved in the project anymore. Heck, Daniel, one of the founders, even made a statement that maybe he won't even be involved in Linux anymore. He made that statement over on the Twitter. It doesn't bode well. But if you guys can keep it going, if the people who love Elementary that are remaining can keep it going, more power to you. All right, let's change gears. Let's change gears over to talking about Arch on M1 Macintoshes, because this is kind of cool. So Asahi Linux, ASAHI Linux, they've been working on kind of reverse engineering the heck out of these M1 based, these Apple Silicon based Macintoshes for a while. And I wrote an article last September entitled "Linux for Apple Silicon Macs Getting Closer to Reality." They were working on being able to write to the frame buffer and boot properly and get integrated with the bootloader and everything else. And they were working really hard on just getting support for these machines into Linux. What happened? It happened. The last couple of weeks, Asahi Linux has released their very first alpha version for all M1 based Macintoshes except the new Mac Studio machine. They just haven't had time with that machine yet. But like the M1 based MacBook Pros and the whole lot of them, the Mac Minis, those all work. And it boots. And it's based on Arch. And the thing that I love about that is now Macintosh users who have M1 Apple Silicon Macs can say, by the way, I use Arch. And I know they've been wanting to say that for a very, very long time. Some people have been posting screenshots. Go check out the article for a few screenshots. The screenshots don't show you much, right? Because it's Linux, right? It's, oh my gosh, look, there's Linux. And it's Arch. And so what you've got everything that you're used to in Arch. In fact, let me see if I've got it here. One guy took to the tweeters. I just passed it. I know I did. There it is. One guy took to the tweeters and posted the following. And I think this is great. Quote, been dailying an M1 Pro. He's been running Asahi Linux on it for the last 3 weeks, for roughly 3 weeks now. So it came out, the first alpha came out about 2.5 weeks ago, something like that. Granted, I'm easy to please in terms of hardware support, but it's been great for me. Even with all the missing bits, it's still a better daily for me than my X1 Gen 9. With my normal compiles and testing, it is so fast, and I never hear a fan. And given that this is essentially just Arch 64, general support is very mature. Only the Apple-specific bits need some love here and there. One of the great things about Linux, jump to a new Arch and everything you know and love is already there and working. You forget it's non-x86. I think that's really cool because, I mean, it's true, right? You hop over between your i7 desktop to your i5 laptop, and then you go over to, say, a Raspberry Pi. It's all the same. If you're running Debian across all those machines, it's all the same. If you're running Arch across all those machines, you Pac-Man away. You're good to go. And that's beautiful. There's something that really is wonderful about that when you can get all of the big open source packages all recompiled for all those different architectures, and you can just go and just hop between your machines and you've got the same exact software, desktop software, terminal software, whatever, on all your machines. Hell, you can make your system look the same on all of them. That's why the screenshots really don't even matter for Asahi Linux. What almost matters the most is getting pictures of like a MacBook Pro running it, which they have. I've got some pictures and video up over on Lunduk.substack that the Asahi Linux people posted. I don't have an M1 Macintosh to test this on, but if I did, you better believe I'd be using it. One of the cool things about it is that it fully integrates with that graphical Mac bootloader. You know, when a Macintosh starts, it shows you all the drive icons in a row that have a bootable Mac operating system on it. So you can select which drive you want to boot from on your Mac. I think you have to hold down, I think it's the Option key when the system boots up, and then you can just choose your drive. Asahi Linux integrates with that, shows the little Asahi Linux logo, which is like this little like Archie looking, I don't know, that's like red tent triangle thing. And it shows that as, hey, this is a bootable drive with Asahi Linux. You just click it, boom, you boot right into it. And they actually got a video of like a 1 minute long video where they boot on a MacBook Pro, M1 powered MacBook Pro. They boot into Asahi Linux, cold boot into it, and then start messing around with it, and it's like, you know, like 60 seconds long. It's great. Anyway, the system specs, it runs on M1s, M1 Pros, and M1 Max CPUs, no Mac Studios. You have to have macOS 12.3. That's just part of it. And I thought this was interesting. You need at least 53 gigabytes of free disk space. Now, you don't need all 53 gigabytes for Linux. So you need 15 gigabytes for Asahi Linux, the full desktop with all the goodies. But and they say this on their website, quote, but macOS itself needs a lot of free space for system updates to work. So the installer will expect you to leave 38 gigabytes of extra slack in macOS by default to avoid shooting yourself in the foot. For example, if you have 60 gigabytes of free space, you will be able to shrink macOS by up to 22 gigabytes by default, freeing up 22 gigs for the new Linux install and leaving 38 gigs for the remaining free space in the macOS partition. So there you go. It says that you can disable that check if you really want to, but they don't recommend doing it. I did think this was kind of cool. Their whole installer is super cool. So what you do is you are on your macOS system, and you hop into your terminal, logged in as admin, and you do a CURL to a specific website called alx.sh. You just https :/alx.sh. You CURL that, and then you pipe that into your shell. So pipe sh, and it just runs that shell script that it downloads from that website that they've created, and it downloads everything and kicks off the installation process, and then it goes from there, and you just follow the prompts as you go. I thought that was pretty cool. Downsides. Oh boy, is this an alpha. Oh, holy moly, is this an alpha. Things that are not working at all or barely working. Like not really working. DisplayPort, Thunderbolt ports, HDMI on the MacBooks, Bluetooth, GPU acceleration, video codec acceleration, the neural engine, CPU deep idling, sleep mode, the built-in camera, and the touch bar, that little graphical bar above the keyboard, right? Woo! Oh, doggy, that is a lot of things that aren't quite working right. Now, again, there's been multiple people who've been like, you know what, this is working pretty good because they have Wi-Fi is working and Ethernet's working and the performance is apparently so good that why not? But that is a lot of things that are not working. But that's okay. That's okay. I mean, they're trying to bring free and open source system to some of the most crazy lockdown pieces of hardware on planet Earth. So they got to reverse engineer a ton of stuff. So honestly, I got to give kudos to them for making it this far. And I hope that they can get some of these other items knocked off of their list pretty soon and make the whole system that much more usable, especially like the camera and GPU acceleration and like DisplayPort and all that sort of thing. But I mean, I don't know that I'd go out right now and buy an M1 based Macintosh for the purpose of running Linux, right? Like as much as I would like to be able to say I run Arch on an M1 Mac, because that's kind of nerdy bragging rights, right? No, there's just too many things that don't work. You'd be better off buying any random laptop, just a random laptop, just like literally roll the dice, roll a D20 and it chooses your laptop off of Amazon or Newegg or Best Buy or wherever. And more things are going to work properly than what you're going to see here. But the fact that this boots and integrates with the custom Mac bootloader and the installation process is a really slick kind of sort of setup. Man, I got to give kudos to that team. That's pretty rad. That is pretty rad. So anyway, so it's Asahi Linux. It's looking really good. Let me pull this up here. Their website is just asahilinux.org. Again, or I've got it linked over on Lunduk.substack.com as well. Anyway, I think that's pretty rad. So the news, the Linux news right now is a real mixed bag. There's some highlights and there's some lowlights. There's some things to get excited about for the future. There's some super nerdy cool things, and there's some things that are kind of a little bit of a bummer. But hey, I'll take it. At least it's not all bummer news, right? Again, I want to thank everyone for all the support. Both now and over the so many years that I've been creating, weirdo shows and articles, and all the subscribers at the Lunduke Journal, either on lunduk.locals.com or lunduk.substack.com. Seriously, go subscribe right now. If you're not subscribed to those places, you're doing it wrong. The amount of stuff you're missing out on is absolutely obscene. Parody and satire bits. Let's see. Today, just today, I had the two articles I talked about so far. I also had an article on emulating a classic Macintosh inside a web browser, which is a real thing. We do funny, nerdy pictures. We do comics. We do all sorts of stuff. 3 tools to make your computer look like it's busy hacking and coding while doing absolutely nothing. Running x86 Windows games on a Raspberry Pi. The do-it-yourself Linux-powered Palm Top with a mechanical keyboard. Controlling the mouse with your keyboard using Warp D. A lot of discussion recently about the Serenity operating system and Haiku and some of the big things that they've been doing. Seriously, it's kind of impressive. Go check it out. Subscribe. Do it. You want to. And thank you to everyone who already has. You are all phenomenal. Go play Linux Tycoon 3. Go grab the books. Go read them and laugh and enjoy. Everything I produce, every single thing is family friendly. The whole kit and caboodle. So all the books, they're family friendly. The games are family friendly. The articles, the podcasts, the whole community over at Lunduke.locals.com. You should be able to show that to your kids or your grandma or whoever, and everyone should feel comfortable and happy, and it's wonderful. It's just wonderful. It's the nerdiest, happiest places on this green earth of ours, and that's all because of all of you. All of you made that possible. All of you helped to make what I do possible, and all of you contributed to the community and making that community just this wonderful, wonderful place with thousands and thousands of nerds hanging out over at Lunduke.locals.com, and it is amazing. And I love you all. I sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, do. All right, I hope you had some fun today, and I hope you're able to do something wicked, wicked, sweet, and nerdy. And I'll talk to you later. See you guys.